Unit 5, would you introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is Hannah Jackson.
I'm Madeline Vidal.
I'm Ben Murphy.
And I'm Eric Urban. And we're Unit 5. Our unit coach is Mr. Daniel, and our classroom teacher is Mr. Clark.
So we have selected question 1. Why have First Amendment rights been viewed as essential to the functioning of a free society? In what ways have these rights been of particular importance to women and minorities? Although the First Amendment rights are considered essential to a constitutional democracy, it is sometimes argued that these rights must be limited. Under what circumstances, if any, do you think limitations are justified? Explain your answer. You may begin.
The framers knew that free speech is the friend of change and revolution, but they also knew that it is always the deadliest enemy of tyranny. So said Justice Hugo Black in his dissent to the 1957 decision of Yates v. United States, in which the Supreme Court affirmed the convictions of communists accused of advocating the overthrow of the government. Expressing skepticism towards the majority's holding, Justice Black insisted that free expression of unpopular ideas is absolutely vital to the peaceful progress of a free society.
Therefore, the 5 freedoms, speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition, given in the First Amendment work together to preserve each individual's fundamental right to contribute to the marketplace of ideas, to peacefully assemble, and to make progress toward a more perfect union. The founders considered the freedom of expression not only essential for a functioning free society, but as the keystone to freedom. This suppression of expression often yields violent uprisings, such as when lawyer and politician Maximilien Robespierre started his reign of terror during the French Revolution and killed anyone who expressed they were against his uprising.
In order for the citizens to have a peaceful way to express their discontent with the government, the Founding Fathers created the First Amendment. The freedom of expression bypasses the need for violence by the disenfranchised seeking equality. Invoking free exercise of religion and assembly, Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights activists were able to congregate in churches on their quest for equality. In 1963, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference gathered the African American community in the 16th Street Baptist Church to peacefully protest the segregation in Birmingham, Alabama during the Children's Crusade.
Applying First Amendment protection, Cesar Chavez's use of aggressive yet nonviolent techniques such as boycotts and hunger strikes led to grape growers recognizing the United Farm Workers Union and brought national attention to the plight of farm workers. Many women have gained a voice against inequalities that they have suffered in this country. By using the First Amendment right to petition and address grievances, Elizabeth Cady Stanton's Declaration of Sentiments at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York created a blueprint for the women's rights and suffrage movement. This ultimately led to the passing of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote.
The freedom of expression not only allows change through persuasion rather than violence, but it is also key in the progression of a society and equality for its individuals, especially those who are underrepresented in government, such as women and minorities. Although Justice Black believed that the freedom of speech and expression should be absolute, we agree with the Supreme Court, which has ruled otherwise by repeatedly ruling that state and federal governments may place reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner of individual expression.
In order to be considered constitutional, restrictions must be content neutral, be narrowly drawn, serve a significant government interest, and leave open alternative channels of communication. These restrictions were first established in the 1941 case Cox v. New Hampshire, where a group of Jehovah's Witnesses were denied their right to freely exercise their religion and peacefully assemble because their march along the city sidewalks interfered with normal foot travel, upholding a compelling state interest to enforce regulations that assured the safety and convenience of the people.
The court held that the power of the government is needed to safeguard the civil liberties upon which civil liberties ultimately depend. Other forms of expression are not protected by the First Amendment, such as the use of defamation, slander, or obscenity. Also, as ruled upon in Brandenburg v. Ohio, encouraging eminent legal action not only infringes upon the rights of other people, but also encourages violence and rioting.
Since August of this year, the media coverage of Michael Brown's shooting by police officer Darren Wilson began to incite rioting and violence in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. In order to protect their citizens and prevent further damage to the community, the press's access was limited. First Amendment rights must occasionally be limited in order to protect the common good over the necessity of the perceived individual rights. Thank you.
talked about Ferguson. So we had LeBron James 2 nights ago walk out on a basketball court with a t-shirt that read, "I can't breathe." We had 5 football players about a week before that walk out with their hands up at the beginning of the game. Didn't say anything, just had their hands up. Is this speech in both of those instances? And if it is speech, what kind of speech is it?
This is absolutely speech. I would say that it's symbolic speech, which is usually defined, it can be clothing or symbolic pieces of cloth, such as in Tinker v. Des Moines. And I think that this is definitely speech because they're obviously conveying a message with what they're wearing.
And although some people may not agree with what they're doing, it's absolutely vital to peaceful progress. And as Justice Black said, it promotes to the marketplace of ideas. So although not everyone would agree, but it helps contribute.
Does it make a difference that they did this while they were at work? All of them were at work when they did it. Does it make a difference to you?
I think it does make a difference. I think especially given that these are professional athletes and that while they're at work, they're seen by millions of people, their speech is different than somebody wearing it at home or to a smaller event or anything. I think they're making a bigger message and trying to say something.
Also, the big difference is because they're doing it at their work, because they are professionals, they have to go with the rules that their employer set for them. So the NFL or the NBA could have very easily fined them for what they did. They chose not to. They decided that it's fine what they did, but they could have certainly been fined if both the NFL or the NBA thought that that was stepping over the boundaries.
In what ways are new forms of communication, such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, giving rise to important First Amendment issues?
Seen recently, actually, in the case LNS v. U.S., this case is working its way up in the courts. A man was writing on, he was going through a divorce with his wife, and he was writing on his Facebook status kind of violent Eminem rap lyrics, and his partner at the time found it very offensive and almost threatening. So I think that social media and Facebook and Twitter really kind of blur the line on like what someone's actual intent is when they're trying to write something, and it's really hard to determine.
And with the rise of new technology and these new social media websites, people's ideas are very easily spread to other people, and everybody has a different interpretation of everything. So something that one person says is taken a million different ways, and that creates a lot of controversy and problems.
Michigan's House of Representatives recently passed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Can you discuss the conflicts that arise from passing an act like that?
I think the real argument here is either to protect the First Amendment rights of those people that are working for hospitals or are working for ambulances, or to protect the rights of people that might not get care. I think it's like really a matter of life or death, and it's very controversial in a way because people who are administering the medical care, they feel that if they would have to give it to someone whose religious beliefs they don't necessarily agree with, that would go against their establishment clause. So it's very controversial in that way, kind of balancing two people's rights.
Balance those rights, those exact rights. Which one do you think, if you have to choose, which one is the most important?
Personally, I believe that these people should not be denied health care or aid based on their sexual orientation. I feel like that interest is more than the interest of those people protecting their their establishment clause.
And these people's lives are at stake. So if contributing to more of the common good for the surgeons or medical people, they have to give up their individual beliefs in order to protect the common good and keep these people alive, because it would better the community to not have all of these people dying just because they're homosexuals.
Madeline, what do you think?
Well, I personally believe that the person being treated has the right, given that it's a life or death situation here, I believe that that person's rights should be taken over the one treating them. I think it's more important in that moment. I don't believe you're violating the other person's establishment clause, given that it's not a practice of their religion, they're at their job, which is providing medical care to everybody, especially in a paramedic service, which is required when you call 911. You're expected to get an ambulance no matter what. So I don't think they should have to stop and take the time to be, oh, are you homosexual? I'm sorry, we won't treat you. Have a nice day. And then leave.
The Supreme Court ordinarily protects political speech, including expression that is outside the mainstream of political thought. Why do you think political communication receives such special treatment?
Well, we need political speech to be protected in order to contribute to the marketplace of ideas. People need to be able to get their ideas out there and have people listen to them. Even if they aren't good ideas, you still need those ideas so people can decide, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to that, that person's crazy, but it's still good that they got their ideas out there so that maybe some people will be like, yeah, I really agree with that, or no, that's crazy.
I think a good example of this would be the Supreme Court case Texas v. Johnson. Texas had a state statute saying that there should be no burning of American flags. Well, Johnson argued that his burning of the American flag was symbolic speech and that it should be protected by the First Amendment, and the court upheld Johnson and said that it was symbolic speech and it should be protected.
And in the court case Adderley v. Florida, the court ruled that, or they stated that political speech is necessary to keep the citizens informed of the government. And although there's a lot of controversy in political speech, it allows all ideas to be heard and to really the betterment of the government, and allows for the creation of new laws from that and new ideas to be evolved.
Should reporters have a right not to divulge the names of sources when covering political stories?
I believe that they absolutely should be able to keep their sources covered. I believe that if, in order to get a story out to the public, they need to keep the source private, then that's what they should do, because I believe that informing the general population is more important than releasing the name of their source.
And we see this in recent events with Ray Rice and his abuse of his wife. At first, people did not believe that it was as bad as it was, but then some TMC got the video of it, and then everyone was able to view and see really how bad it really was, and that was able to allow for everyone to have a say or to see what really happened.
This week, there has been published a report with regard to the CIA's activities regarding enhanced questioning of prisoners and that kind of thing. And when that was published, there was an understanding that that could impact the safety of U.S. citizens on foreign soil. That was done by the government. What if a private citizen took it upon themselves to publish that material? Is that protected by under the First Amendment?
Well, the right to the press is protected in the First Amendment, so if this person was publishing it as a form of press and getting a news story out there, then that absolutely is protected.
What if we use a different definition of publish, meaning just to disseminate, not in a newspaper, they just get it out there somehow?
Well, you could make the case that it wouldn't be protected because you're endangering people overseas and you could be creating imminent lawless action, which is not protected under Schenck v. U.S.
A very similar case was Nebraska Press Association v. Stewart, and they ruled that because it has government involvement in sometimes secrets, that the government may priorly restrain it to protect the government's doings and behind doors.
To contradict Ben's point a little bit, prior restraint is also not allowed in the case of New York Times v. United States, where the Pentagon Papers were allowed to be published because of the First Amendment and the freedom of the press.
We'll stop there.